Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. On this week's review, I'm going to look at the new album by Spanish Love Songs entitled Brave Faces Everyone. Now, this album actually came out yesterday, and I was going to try and get the review up for last night, but due to my job and also another host of sort of other bands releasing music on the same day, I didn't really get to grips with it till today, so I didn't think it was fair just to stick a review up, even though I hadn't really listened to it as much as I should have. Other bands yesterday released albums. Sylosis released their new album, Sepultura released their new album, and Loathe released their album, so there was a lot to get through, and I haven't really got to grips with the other albums yet, so I'm hoping maybe next week to try and get a review of the new Loathe album up if I can, or the Sylosis one, or the Sepultura one. Anyway, excuses aside, here is my review of the new album by Spanish Love Songs entitled Brave Faces Everyone. Now, a little bit of history about Spanish Love Songs. They were formed back in 2014 and released their debut album in 2016 entitled Giant Sings the Blues. This was followed up in 2018 by the critically acclaimed Schmaltz. And this is really where I first heard Spanish Love Songs. So this will be their third album, and the band consists of Dylan Slocum on guitars and vocals, and he's the main songwriter in the band. Carl McCauley is a guitarist on the band, and Trevor Dietrich is the bassist. You have Ruben Duarte on drums, and Meredith Van Vert on keys. Apologies if any of them have been mispronounced, because they probably will have been. If you've never heard Spanish Love Songs before, their sound is the punkier side of Springsteen and the Menzingers, mixed with a bit of sort of Manchester Orchestra, the Gaslight Anthem, but with a lot more sort of punk and grit to it, I think. So anyway, on with the review. And the album itself opens up with the song Routine Pain. And at first, the first little few bars of the song, I thought, this sounds remarkably like Mumford & Sons, and I started to worry. But no need to worry, it explodes into this honest punk rock anthem, and is all about sort of the pain of touring. Spanish Love Songs have got an incredible knack of writing catchy punk songs, all wrapped up in these beautifully honest lyrics. And this album as a whole, by their own admission, was written on the sort of long touring cycle that they undertook after Schmaltz. And again, this is all honest written songs. The opening song, Routine Pain, is all about the pain of touring, as I just said, and nothing's really ever shrouded in metaphors with this band. There's lyrics like everyone in this bar is the same everywhere I look, it's just routine pain, I'm just sick of treading water. The band's always got a great knack of being very self-deprecating, self-loathing in their lyrics, and almost pessimistic at times, and this album's no different. You got a song like Self-Destruction, brackets, as a sensible career choice, which is all about the pitfalls, let's say, of being a musician and being in a band, and it's brilliantly written with these self-loathing, self-deprecating, sarcastic and despairing lyrics at times, but wrapped up in these beautifully catchy punk rock hooks. The album itself is darker than Schmaltz in my eyes, but it's not as introspective. I felt that Schmaltz was a very introspective album, and almost like a Dylan Slocum solo album. This feels like a much more outward looking album, written on this touring cycle by the entire band, looking out into the world and how it's affecting them, looking at what they're doing with their lives and where they're going as a band, where they're going with their lives. And I think it's a much different album than Schmaltz, and it feels a bit different, but it feels a bit grittier and darker at times. A song like Kick, which is their second single off the album, is a really good example of how their storytelling has progressed. Dylan Slocum is this great storyteller now, and that song is all sort of character based around a cycle of drug abuse in a family, and has this sort of stunning sort of skyscraping chorus again, but it's all wrapped up in this brilliantly well written narrative. Spanish Love Songs write anthems that deserve to be sung back at them, much like when you go to like a Menzingers gig and the whole crowd is singing along every word back at the band. I feel like Spanish Love Songs will achieve this level, I feel, on this album, and I can see the rabid fan base growing and growing. Dylan's vocals have always been a sticking point with certain people, and I can see why, I guess, on the more minimalistic songs, which there aren't that many on here, but when his vocals become the focal point of the song, his vocals can sort of crack and waver a little bit. Almost sounds like he's on the verge of sort of tears, but it never gets that melancholic, let's say. I think it's just emotion and raw honesty in his voice, and I think it works really well. I've never had a problem with it. I like how the album changes pace sort of halfway through for a little bit on the more not minimalistic, but the song like Beachfront Property has this change of pace on it, which offers much more space to the song, and the space allows the more emotional chorus to sort of punctuate through and become much more of an impactful chorus. And I think it's done really, really well, up to a great standard. Dylan's lyrics have always been the focal point of this band, and I feel like his writing and storytelling and character narrative has come along a lot more on this album, and it's up to an incredibly high standard now. Like I said, this album is full of loathing and cynicism, but this album does offer sort of a more dark, optimistic approach. If you look at the more aptly named minimalistic song, Optimism as a Radical Life Choice, Dylan refrains, Armageddon on my mind, I'll try to smile at the time, which offers a more glimmer of hope amongst this darkness that they put out along the songs. But then there is the more pessimistic side, where it's like Losers Part 2, which is the more of a come down after The Incredible Losers, which is a song full of pessimism after the more hopeful track before it. Losers itself is this, it was the first song released off this album, and I think it's probably one of the best rock songs of the year. It's this straight up, pretty much straight up rock song the band have ever written, but it's so anthemic and so catchy and sing along that it's just glorious to listen to.
So many opinions on how we live, but there's no option for even how to get out of bed. When my bleak mind says it's cheaper just to die, the brick inside my head's laid off and daring me to try. My bleak mind, it says this is all you get. Open all this time, but all you'll find is against all your destiny.
The album as a whole, actually, I feel balances this optimism and pessimism very well. It's not just a pessimistic album, which you can come across as. I think the album balances out both. I think the title of the album really is the key to the theme of the album being brave faces, everyone. Almost, let's put a brave face on amongst the entire world going to shit. The crap that's going on in our lives, the barriers that are in our lives, the crap of being a musician and struggling and everything. Brave faces, everyone. And I think almost offers an explanation in the closing track, which is the title track, where Dylan says, we were never broken, life's just very long. This is a real step forward, this album, and it's a step up from Schmaltz. It feels like a more collaborative album. It feels like the band have got involved a lot more on this album, and they've all developed in all the areas they needed to, and they've become a tremendous garage punk rock band. This is a stunning and stirring album at times, and if you're into that side of punk, like the Menzingers and the more punkier side of Springsteen, I think this is for you. So there we go. I think this is a great album. I think Spanish Love Songs have really come out on this album and set a standard for themselves. It's hard to top an album like Schmaltz that was very critically acclaimed at the time when it came out, but I feel they have done with this album. I feel at the end of the year this will be well up in my top 20. Thanks for watching. I'll try and come back next week, maybe with the Sepultura review or the Silosis review or the Loathe review, depending on how I get on with them. But as for now, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of the album. Cheers.